I'm Erica Hollingsworth, and you're listening to the F1 podcast.
What's up, everyone? It is Richie here from the F1 podcast. Happy Thursday, December 12th. I had to check the calendar for that one. And this is season 4, episode 36. I'm here with Andrew Cleary. And Andrew, how are you doing, my man? Can you believe we're finally done the season?
Man, it was like yesterday where I thought we just had our first race in Bahrain. We were talking about the Red Bull dominance. We were at, Trinity Commons doing our post-race recap of how we thought Max was going to win every race by 25 seconds this year. That didn't seem to be the way that was the case by the end of the season.
Do a barrel
Well,
roll.
definitely. So speaking of which, McLaren has finally did it. With Lando Norris's win of the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, they have won their first Constructors Championship in 26 years. Hats off to you, McLaren and the Papaya. Like really incredible season you guys have had as of late. And I mean, it was a hard fought battle towards the end between Ferrari and McLaren, but we got a lot we got to a lot to unpack today regarding the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix and the final race of the season. So let's start, I guess, with qualifying. We knew that there was going to be a battle between McLaren and Ferrari, and McLaren struck with the 1-2 there with some really good
Mhm.
qualifying, but also Leclerc had some really bad luck with getting hit with a 10 place grid penalty over a battery issue, which made him start P19. I'm going to be honest, it almost looked over and done with to start on Sunday's race.
But there was like confusion about his lap being reinstated in Q2, but it wasn't reinstated, so we ended up, bowing out in Q2. But thankfully, he had other people like Franco Colapinto. He had to take an engine penalty as well, which then pushed Leclerc up to P19. So it was kind of, it was McLaren's to lose at that point, right? Because Sainz was in P3 to start the day, and then Charles being way at the back at P19, it would have to be some like crazy overtaking. They needed at least one DNF from McLaren in order to, particularly Lando Norris, in order to win this thing.
It's like it's interesting that you mentioned that. I wonder if they just needed another orange driver to potentially play bumper cars in the first lap, and I wonder who that was.
Yeah. Well, it was, Max did a little clippage on
Sorry.
It was
You
unbelievable.
lose.
Little clipping on Oscar, and then Checo's like, "Oh, if that's what Mac's gonna do, I can do you one better." And then he has his own first lap like chaos at the back there. It was just an absolute nightmare. He didn't even make it past the second. Didn't even make it past the second lap, or like the second turn. Sorry, it was just like his race was done, and like, unfortunately, that might be the way that Checo goes out of Red Bull. This guy's had like quite a good career as a driver, right? He had a great start to the Red Bull, his campaign with Red Bull in 2021, being the Minister of Defense, and now he is the Minister of Suspense because we don't know what's going to happen with his seat come next year.
Yeah, and it's like too bad because you even made that point. Like he started really well into the Red Bull team, and I know he got his first win prior to that, and even started the season pretty decent for the most part. Yeah, like it kind of makes sense at that point now. I'll be very honest. I think that was his last race for Red Bull Racing. I mean, and so let's kind of talk a little bit more about the race particular. Yeah. So you first lap, you had an incident between Oscar Piastri and Max Verstappen. Max was going through the inside line and tapped Oscar. And quote, if I can quote Oscar Piastri, he's pretty tongue in cheek on the radio. That was a world champion move there, or something on the lines of that. And think about it, because of that, that allowed Leclerc, he gained 11 spots uh, on the
Oh,
first lap.
I don't know if you saw like his onboard from when the five lights went out. He was just a madman going all the way through that, especially like into the I think it's turn four or turn five into the first curve into that first DRS point. Oh my goodness, he was a man on a mission. He clearly was not happy with the way he had to start P19, but with that power engine upgrade, boom, just off to the races to begin with. And I think by like lap five, he was P6.
they needed to secure as many points as possible. But then towards the end of the race, it just became really hard when they moved on to the hard tires and just the consistent grading from for Carlos Sainz and Leclerc. So they were not able. I mean, picture perfect drive for Lando Norris to hold off both the Ferraris, and we
Some
were
might
one.
say a championship like performance right there. Because he was just absolute nails from start to finish. All 58 laps were just hammered, he just consistently hammered them out. And with that type of drive, and if McLaren continues on the trajectory, sorry, that they're looking to go for next season, does that make Lando the front runner for the World Drivers' Championship in terms of odds being a favorite?
Well, I would think so, just because how the season, how, even from starting from 2023, when we saw the McLaren car improve significantly, but not to the point of actually winning races. But then this year we saw them winning races. And I think, Zach Brown even said he's, very happy with his constructors title. Bonuses a lot to a lot of the people working at the factory out in the
Mhm.
UK, particularly. And so while this was like a big achievement for him, him and Lando made a good point after the race. He's like, my eyes are on to 2025 and I want to be the next drivers champion. And I think he might as well. There is a very good argument after this weekend race that he is the one to battle Max Verstappen. I would not count the Ferraris because they looked pretty good. And even despite Carlos wanting to win, I mean, or Leclerc wanting to win this without Lewis Hamilton, I think they put up a good fight. Um, what I would say is, I think this year was definitely a lot of learning for the Papaya and for the McLaren team, especially for Lando and Oscar to understand. And I think we can talk about this in our year end. There were obviously some hiccups that maybe prevented him from really competing with Max Verstappen. And it could have been a lot more closer, don't get me wrong. But yeah, like a lot of support for them going into the new year for sure.
No, yeah, and like speaking of Lewis Hamilton, I mean, my goodness, what a final drive for Mercedes. You know, really tough incident in Q1 there where he got the bollard stuck underneath his car. They kind of didn't send him in the optimal window, and even Toto was very mad about that afterwards. Kind of, felt embarrassed that he put his driver in that predicament. But man, Lewis was a man on a mission, and when you heard Bono say it's hammer time for like the last times, knowing that he could have been in a P3 position, I got like the hair in the back of my neck just rose up because not only is that like, one of his most iconic, radio messages, and I say in all of Formula One history, right? And their partnership, but knowing that it was probably the last time you would hear it. Um, it was sad, but I mean, it was emotional in a way where you're like, okay, let's see what Lewis can do. And my God, did he fly through the field? And that last lap battle with George was super incredible.
Yeah, and I don't know if you heard the radio, but like Total Wolf said, keep it clean. Like we don't want to have any issues or any for last moments. And think about that. Seven-time champion sliced through the field to break into the top 10, and his comeback was complete with that sensational pass on George Russell. And I wonder if George at that point just said, you know what, I'm not even really going to fight this. And I think that allowed him to score more points than George. Um,
Mhm.
is that kind of a performance that left no one in doubt that Hamilton has still got it as he prepares for a new chapter in Ferrari. And it's funny that his outfit, I don't know if you saw throughout the weekend. So he started, I think it was on Friday, he was wearing all white. Then on Saturday, he was kind of wearing like a white outfit slash a little bit of red. Then full on Sunday was all red.
Did you see Bono wearing his Tommy Hilfiger outfit? I mean, like that
He
looked
said,
good on
Lewis said
Bono.
that it
I'm
looked
not
like
gonna lie. I thought it looked fantastic on Bono.
Lewis said he looked like something from a boy band.
Well, sign me up, man. That yeah, doesn't Bono look he should go into preseason testing next year wearing that as well, just for fun.
I would think if Lewis and Bono were a boy band, what would their name be?
Hammer time.
Let's ask the fans. Let's see what they do. Some other notable drivers for this week. Pierre Gasly, you know, I just can't believe the story with him. He finished the season with no damage to his car. Uh,
Zero
Zero.
damage. The first time ever this has happened in an F1 season.
His three best results of the season came in his final four races, with seventh at Abu Dhabi, helped him finish 10th in the Drivers' Championship, and then they were able to hold, I think it was P6 in or P5 in the Constructors. And just think about how remarkable that drive in Brazil was to really secure them that 30 extra million dollars.
If I were to tell you that Pierre Gasly, since the summer break, had scored more points than Sergio Perez, would you believe me?
No, absolutely not.
Well, and but that's the case.
And
Like,
mind you, podium like two. Well, yeah, okay, that's
and
fair.
more podiums, yeah. Like, again, like just the fact that like the Alpine, which was an absolute boat to begin the season, and they're able to again find something in the car that got them to the P6 Constructors Championship, large in part due to Brazil. But just the fact that Gasly was able to score more points than Checo since the summer break, again, how does Checo have a seat next season? Like,
It,
no
it
offense to Pierre, but I mean, like, well, different machinery.
and it is kind of like you see other Red Bull drivers succeed outside of the Red Bull family, and they kind of just went, "Can we bring them back at
Yeah.
some point?" Yeah, I think some other notable moments. Yeah, Franco Colapinto. Unfortunately, he had engine issues. Bottas had the collision. Uh, Lawson had to leave because he had brakes issue. I mean, Magnussen, the Haas's didn't look like they had a good weekend. Well, actually, no.
Well,
Nico Hulkenberg, recovers from maybe a difficult last couple of races to score more points for them. Um,
and then shout out to K-Mag for securing the fastest lap in probably what is going to be his last F1 Grand Prix, right? So that's it's a nice little cherry on top for him to kind of go on to the sunset there in his F1 career. But yeah, you know what? Like it was pretty much a standardized race throughout the entire weekend. Yeah, kind of yeah, again, championship drive from Lando. The 10-second penalty that Oscar picked up with the collision on Colapinto just really did not help him down the road. And kudos to him for even getting back to a point scoring position in P10, to
mhm.
be honest with you. But yeah, again, like Ferrari starting that far back in the field, it was just super tough to gain enough points to beat Lando or to beat McLaren in that case. But it was nice to see Sainz on the podium in his final race for Ferrari. There was an emotional video that he was watching with his team as kind of like a farewell. You could see the tears build up. But it had to have been a sobering moment when you go from the podium finish in P2 to then have to go down the barracks the next day to or down the garages the next day to Williams and test drive that car around where it's like he's got to be thinking, man, maybe yesterday was my last podium in F1 for a long time.
Yeah, I guess let's talk a little bit about that. Yeah, it was definitely an emotional day, and I think both drivers really wanted to try to secure this for each other. And there's a video that even surfaced lately that Carlos was saying goodbye to his mechanics and his engineers, and I believe he was speaking Italian. He's like, I'll be cheering Leclerc on from the Williams garage, and I hope you guys can win it next year. And I mean, it's going to be sad. I was sad, like just to see, like it was an emotional race because you knew there's going to be a lot of drivers that are going to be leaving the sport or leaving, drives or moving places. And I mean, we even didn't even Esteban Ocon didn't even get like a final photo with towards the end of the season. So Jack Doohan had to step in. I don't know if you saw that, but
Like which I thought was ridiculous from Alpine. I
yeah,
mean, it's like one of those like the end of the year photos when it was like, all the drivers and then it was just Jack doing on the side. It's like the one guy who just showed up late for the group project and takes credit.
yeah. But yeah, back to Carlos. Yeah, very emotional, and I think I'm happy to see both of them on the podium, and I think that was really, really good for they can enjoy it together. And yeah, I mean, he goes in like not even 24 hours later, he's in a full white suit and he's driving the not McLaren car. Whoops, the Williams car. I think he probably wants to be in the McLaren car again. And he set pretty record times. He was apparently
He was faster
outpacing.
than Albon in his qualifying stint before. So Alba now has some stiff competition, isn't it? Now he doesn't have just two rookies, you know, competing with him next season in the paddock there. He's got, Carlos Sainz, and I think next year's gonna be a real big test for Alex Albon in that case. Yeah.
Overall season. This has probably been the most exciting season, multiple race winners, multiple constructors, and, multiple driver changes. I think it's been weird to see all these, not just the drivers moving internally or new drivers coming in, do it not just full on just competitive. And that's what I think made this season so great.
Yeah, and I would argue like 2024 was probably one, if not, well, probably one of, if not the best season we've ever had in the sport. As you mentioned, John, right? Setting records for multiple race winners on the grid, right? Had 7, 8 different winners on the grid multiple times. We had 4 different constructors win a race in that regards, right? And I guess in a sense, why I say that is because at the beginning of the season, it was looking like Red Bull was just going to just dominate everywhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then they slowly started to teeter backwards. Especially with all the internal issues that were going on, right? It just kind of created an opportunity for McLaren, for Ferrari, for Mercedes to catch up, and they clearly did, right? And the lone whole fact is, I wonder what would have happened if Checo was not, if Checo left, say, at the halfway through the season. Would they have been in a position where they were still fighting for a Constructors' Championship or not? Because I don't know if you know this, John.
Oh, tell me, Andrew.
The points gap between Max Verstappen and Sergio Perez, I think it was around like 275 points. If you were to take the total of the point differential, like point gaps of the remaining 9 constructors, in the sense that between their top scoring and their second scoring drivers, that total gap is less than the gap that Max put on Checo, which is outstanding. Again, and Max did have a fantastic season, right? He did enough to win the championship. He drove Brazil when it mattered the most, won that race when it mattered the most in that campaign, right? But man, like just to be the fact that you're like 275 plus points behind your teammate, and that is the most gap out of all the other 9 teams combined. It's just like, what? It just begs the question: what if you took him out come the summer break, put in, say, Yuki, put in even like Liam Lawson? What would have happened?
Well, yeah, and I think just clearly, I think it would have been more competitive. I mean, we're all seeing this in like a shiny globe. But you got to think about like how the season was, and I'm just going to read some stats quickly. 4 drivers with multi-poles, 4 teams with 4+ wins, 4 teams with 4+ poles, 5 different drivers on pole, only 1 driver won consecutive races, a span where different drivers won 6 consecutive races, 4 teams with 1 and 2 finishes. Max Verstappen's 4th straight world championship, Lewis Hamilton ending his winless drought at Silverstone at his home GP, Charles Leclerc ending the Monaco curse, Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri first GP win, and I'll give the credit to on Twitter at F1 guy Daniel Valente I believe he's with the Score. He tweeted this, and yeah, it's been pretty remarkable. But I mean, yeah, I think earlier in the season they should have probably dropped Checo. I think that would have been I think it would have been a much different conversation we would have had at the end of the year. And at least while they're happy they won the Drivers' Championship, they probably were wishing that, yeah, it depends where they end in the constructors and more money could have gone to their team.
I also want to give credit to McLaren. They were also a team that had 0 DNFs this season. Again,
Really?
I think the first time they had 0 DNFs in a sport compared to the constructors, right? So not having any DNFs just puts you in a position to continually score points, which they were able to do. And then they ended up finishing, P1 of the constructors, right? So hats off to the Papaya. They did what they sought out to do at the beginning of the season. Didn't look like it was going to end up happening, but they continue to fight through. And again, the 0 DNFs are crucial to their victory.
Andrew, I totally forgot that we have an F1 movie that was happening throughout the season. I forgot to talk about that. And then did you see the Brad Pitt on the podium afterwards with George and Charles Leclerc going to
Charles.
get cameo appearances in this movie?
I thought that was awesome, and it was funny because now it's like, oh, Apex GP is now starting to cease operations, so to speak. And then there was that account on Twitter. Apparently, may have seen it was like cease and desist because then they had to mention that it was all just a for fun account. It was just created by fans of the movies, had no affiliation with F1, with the production companies of the film. So we were getting lied to effectively about the race results that were going to get incorporated within the movie. But it would have been so much fun if they did that in the sense that then you could get real life people reactions to how they performed in the GPs. But yeah, the filming is now over. Even Brad Pitt was saying it's so sad to see his kind come to him because he became like a pilot in his own right. And to have this project be finished, I'm curious to see what the end product is going to look like.
Yeah, I think it's gonna obviously gonna compete with Drive to Survive, and I mean it'll be nice. I think it comes out June 27th, 2025. So make sure we'll do a maybe we do a all the fans go to watch it together at a movie theater close to us. With that said, it is the holiday season, so just want to wish everybody a happy holidays from us from the F1 podcast. We are going to be taking a little bit of a break after Christmas. We'll be doing our annual Formies episode to conclude season 4 of the F1 podcast. On behalf of myself, Andrew, and Erica, we really appreciate all the support you've given us throughout the years. And to think that we're going to go into 2025, Andrew, 2025 for our 5th season, we might have something spicy and exciting for the first episode. So stay tuned on our social media channels. Make sure to follow us on Linktree. And Andrew, you haven't done this in a while. Do you want to send us off?
Yes, everyone, thank you so much for listening to the F1 podcast. Again, please follow us on Linktree where you can find access to all of our social media platforms and all of our platforms where you can locate our podcasts, episodes. As Richie said, we're going to be doing our annual Formies come after the break. We'll do a year-end season review to see how poorly we did in our season predictions. I'm already anticipating my Haas prediction to be quite awful. But then again, we are going to be going into 2025 where we're going to see a ton of new faces, new driver locations, and then the final year of this sort of set of regulations because 2026 we're going to be going into a new era of Formula One again. So I can't wait to do season 5 where we're going to enjoy the final year of let's say the Max Verstappen dominant era because that guy's just won all 3 years so far. But will that be the case next year? We won't know. However, come and tune and check into our year-end review and our annual Formies coming up after the Christmas holidays. Happy holidays to all of you fans out there. Be safe, be merry, and enjoy the Max Verstappen victory. And I know today is the 3-year anniversary of the 2021 Abu Dhabi Grand Prix.
Oh
So
my
just
God.
do yourself a favor, forget about it and enjoy your holiday break.
See you, everyone.
Yeah.